Hey, Alim. How you doing? Welcome to your first Partner AI Forum.
It's great to be here, Jim. I think we both have New York roots, so it's good to be sitting in New York, and it's good to be immersed in the Google ecosystem.
Well, you're a great partner. I'm glad you took this role. And, let's start with a little fun,
All right.
Why don't you tell me about your go-to prompt in this world of AI right now?
So I spend a lot more time than I should in AI. My wife thinks I'm having an affair with with AI, but I get into very deep conversations, and as you use AI, you get a lot of confirmation bias.
Yes.
So my favorite prompt is at the end of one of these long conversations, when I think I've got a definitive viewpoint, I ask for a cold eyes review on whatever the output is.
Right.
And it gives it to you straight and takes out all those biases. And so I'm a big, I like to ask AI to do a cold eyes review on whatever.
Well, it's funny how that works out. I have one of our AI specialist leaders created a prompt that allows me to go and do a video of myself presenting and then have AI critique it.
Oh.
So I learned a lot with regards to it. I'm kind of angry at the critique, but it helps me get better out there and go from there. So it's really something. But let's get into the business side of this a little bit. I have my prompt cards. I have like 20 questions or so for you. I'll just pick a couple, go from there. But, it's funny, you and I talked earlier. Everyone's talking about agentic AI right now, right? You tell me a little bit about how you, with Egen, are helping customers leverage the agentic AI trend and what you would, see as the keys to your success right now.
I think there's a tremendous potential for the technology and a tremendous expectation for the technology. And our clients have huge ambitions around how they can transform how work is done. What I've noticed in the market, we at Egen, we're engineers. A lot of focus is put on the technical platform. A lot of focus is put on needing domain expertise. There probably hasn't been enough effort to date focusing on the operator, the end person that is going to be working side by side with the AI or whose job is being changed by the AI. And so we just launched a change management practice at Egen focused on agentic AI. And a lot of our time is spent not so much training operators, but partnering with them to build trust and having them be co-authors in the solutions. Because at the end of the day, what AI is about making humans more productive. It's about improving our decision making. And so to us, that's the unlock that the market's not spending enough time talking about. And that's what's going to make AI resilient. That's what's going to drive acceptance. That's what's going to stop AI backlash.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the focus on operator, I love that focus out there because it is about making humans more productive. And I believe you even have some specialized IP you put into that change management process that you're leveraging with some of our customers.
We have a product or a piece of IP called eGenie. And so imagine you have a large organization that's got hundreds of thousands of people, and they've rolled out Gemini Enterprise. Those hundreds of thousands of people all have very different jobs. And if you have to sit down and you have to train each and every single person or for each domain, the training expense becomes very high. So we've created a voice agent that basically automates the creation of the training for folks.
Wow.
And it's made a massive difference. Most of our Gemini Enterprise deployments, Google looks at things in terms of weekly active users. We're hitting 90% plus of the active users within a very short time.
And that's great from a time to value standpoint. AI isn't great unless you're using it, right?
Exactly.
And so you're really helping with the time to value standpoint. We talk a lot about, and I have this theme with my team about, making the customer the hero, right? Give me your customer hero story that you can share with me and the audience.
We have a very large hospitality client. Together, we have a large hospitality client. What people don't often understand about hospitality is their corporate offices, they're basically enablers for a bunch of small and medium-sized businesses, right? So most hotels are franchised. And so corporate's job is to build a brand and help drive customers to those properties. So we were approached by a large hospitality client, and they said, look, we want to help customers find specific properties based on very specific search criteria. I need a hotel and I have 3 kids and a dog within proximity of, Chelsea Piers. And they wanted it to be voice enabled. And most of what they were being told by other vendors was that would require massive data transformation. And the time to value would have been years and millions of dollars. Our team looked and said, no, that's not, with Gemini Enterprise, with understanding the domain and the specific data, no, let's just start. Let's start today. And I think we went live last week. So we built a proof of concept and we've rolled it out. And that is now in production. And that hotel brand is driving additional customers to specific properties. And that's differentiating for them. So the old adage and the old orders of operations that you had to go through to drive transformation are different now. You can start much sooner, much faster, and you can focus on getting value right out of.
I think you talk about a key point: time to value. Right. Not just focusing on the ROI, but the time to value associated with that a little bit more. I know that is a focus area. Can you elaborate a little bit more about how you guys are approaching not just making sure that you get the right ROI, but you get it in a time to value, time frame that sort of works for the customer?
I think, as someone in professional services, that's almost the only lens that you should be looking at things through. Part of why there's so much transformation needed in professional services is a lot of folks look at things as big transformations and things that will, keep their bodies busy. We're a relatively small organization. We're 700 people. We need amplification out of every single one of our people, and that needs to have a big client impact. So we're looking right away, how do we drive the transformation to client needs in as short of a time as possible? And a lot of that ambition becomes possible with good platform partners and with AI. So that's the lens you have to look at things through.
And I think on top of that, we talked earlier about sort of the industry focus type of thing. It's like having that domain expertise, change management, process expertise. I think that's a key aspect of your go-to-market right now.
Yeah, like when I look at how organizations are transforming with AI, we look at it in terms of two lenses. One is you need to enable the CIO to have platforms that are going to manage AI at scale. So we put a lot of focus on that. But the real transformation from a business perspective is going to happen in the lines of business. And once you get through the kind of generic lines of business that live in all types of industries, you get into the real crux of how organizations make money. What's their IP? What's their differentiation? How do they do research? How do they connect with customers? How do they make decisions? And that's really that's the fun stuff. And you either need to approach that with a domain lens, or you need to have an empathy to learn that domain lens and then take that over and over again. So you need to understand the technology, you need to understand the decision being made, which means the domain, and you need to understand the operator. And if you understand those three things and can bring those to life, you can really transform an organization.
Yeah, I love that approach. And, one of the things I think we've talked about in the past is not just the horizontal focus, but also the automation and the business focus. And you guys do both type of thing, right? It's a sort of a key focus area. You want to share that a little bit more about that approach?
I think one of the industries that I'm passionate about and Egen is passionate about is health and life sciences.
Yes.
We do work with some organizations that have real ambitions around changing how disease is treated, coming up with new cures for things, discovering new drugs. And they look at things through the lens of they've got vast amounts of data. How can they leverage processing power now to find patterns that weren't possible? And so we've been partnering with them for over a decade and partnering with them and Google to bring that to life. And one of the big enablers of that is Gemini Enterprise focuses on being a platform first. A lot of other organizations spend way too much time talking about their models. The reality is we are not going to live in a world where one model rules everything. We need that domain expertise that organizations have built over decades and decades of doing R&D and data that they've collected to turn into proprietary models. Those need to sit side by side with foundational models. We need to allow for the fact that different organizations are going to build different foundational models that are going to have different strengths and everything. Gemini Enterprise allows that to be brought to life. So one of the things I'm proudest of is the work that we do with Google and our healthcare clients. And we understand how the R&D process, but they understand we'll never be the experts in drug research. But the approach that we have together in the market, Egen and Google, allows them to really codify that knowledge and us to bring the amalgamation of different models to life.
Well, let's close with a little fun. I say a lot to a lot of people, like AI is a journey, not a transaction, right? You live and breathe AI every day with your teams. Tell me a little bit about, a capability today that you really think is going to be a game changer, as we move forward with our customers.
I think multidisciplinary thinking. I think the technology, thanks to, companies like Google, is becoming easier over time. So the things we're all scratching our heads over, it's difficult to deploy agents at scale. We're going to figure that out. The market, like Google's figured that out. That's in the next 6 months, that will become commoditized over time. The real challenge is going to be not solving the known problems, but what are the unknown problems that we can solve? What are the things that when you bring all this technology, that the ways we were working aren't sufficient? And that takes imagination, that takes multidisciplinary thinking, that takes collaboration. We're reinventing work. We're reinventing how predictions are made. So to me, that horizontal thinker that can think on different planes, that can bring creativity to the table, that's going to be, world changing.
Yeah, I think a whole new level of agility with how we approach problems is really going to be key moving forward. I'll say last question. I'll just throw this out to you. As we move forward, what is one thing you would say you want the audience to remember about eGen and where you're taking customers today?
I think I want to be thought of as we're a company that's optimistic. We're a company that's unconditionally honest.
Right.
And we're a company that is there to help organizations get to their next level. And we're doing that in a time and a space that we've invested years and decades of time into. And so we're ready to help clients take that journey.
And I know you are. So, hey, thank you for your time today. I look forward to the partnership as we move forward.
Likewise.
I'm hoping you're enjoying your first Partner AI Forum. And like I said, I look forward to working with you a lot with customers.
I appreciate the time, Jim. Thank you.